Alright guys, Hayzink here, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a while, but I thought I would make a video to talk about the new Balrog. Now a lot of people are kind of excited for this Balrog, and they have been looking forward to this Balrog for coming out. They have been looking forward to this Balrog coming out for quite some time. And I thought it would be fun to kind of talk about what kind of character he might be. Now, we could do things like looking at potentially what he was like in China and what he was like in TW, but to be honest, it's absolutely pointless. And the reason I say that is because ultimately he wasn't a special summon in those regions, okay? So because of that, we know his kit could be fundamentally different here on the global version. So obviously, you know, we've currently got the countdown on the go at the moment, and Balrog is going to be our next special summon unit, which, to be honest, I could link proof of this, but I don't really see the point. I did think, anyway, I did post in the Discord that this is the guy I probably thought was coming next. I don't know, is it just coincidental timing that it's the same kind of time as the Jake Paul fight? Would you really want to be associated with that though? I don't know, but obviously everyone quite clearly knows Balrog is inspired by Mike Tyson. Hence the reason he was actually called M. Bison in other versions of the game. M. Bison, Mike Tyson. But it could be why, I don't know, right? But again, if that's what you're using to kind of hype up your character, good luck, because I watched that fight and that was just absolute dog shit. I don't know how else to describe it other than it was dog shit. But let's hope this Balrog won't be dog shit, okay? But I think we can probably quite easy tell what kind of character this is going to be, okay? I think Balrog's going to be a PvP focused character, okay? Now that might just seem like a bit of a given, right? But you know yourself, it's not always the case, right? You sometimes would maybe expect characters to be one thing and they'll actually turn out to be something else. But I think because of how this game is at the moment, okay, which is something we're going to talk about in a completely different video, I don't really think bossing units, even though I prefer bossing units myself, I do like a good bossing unit, I don't think the general player base are as moved by a bossing unit as they are by a PvP unit, okay? And the reason I say that is because obviously when it comes to bossing is PvE content. PvE content has, well, I mean, it's the same with PvP to be honest, but PvE content hasn't really evolved. A lot of people comment on this, and bringing out just yet another bossing unit is essentially going to allow you to put up a couple of million, maybe a billion points if you're lucky on a bossing run. Most people are not going to summon a new unit to clear story because maybe you'll get another couple of stages and then you'll get stuck. So the type of units that will actually influence whether people will summon or not is going to be PvP units. And with him being a boxer unit, I think there's a couple of things that they could do to this unit to make him desirable for free-to-play, not free-to-play, but players who are still willing to summon, okay? So, I've got a couple of, I'll call them thoughts rather than predictions, although maybe they are predictions. But I think because of the nature of being a boxer, right, I think he is going to have some sort of a revival mechanic that he can potentially do up to 3 times. Now, if you guys are at all influenced or at all know about boxing, I mean, I don't know that much about boxing, but I've played a fair few boxing games, and in boxing games you get the TKO, which I assume is actually a thing in normal boxing, and if you get knocked down 3 times, you're done, basically, right? I could see that being a thing with Balrog, as in he has a revival mechanic, maybe a bit like Sagat, where it can be triggered up to 3 times, which would be like a TKO mechanic. And there is another thing they could do that I think, again, would make him a desirable unit. If not that, then they could do something like, I'm going to quote from Rocky here, I didn't hear no bell, which would basically mean if he is hit down to dying, he would get don't drop below 1 HP, but for 10 seconds. Count to 10, 10 count, boxing, 10 count, you know, makes sense, all feeds in together. Which would mean that he would have the newer, better, well I say newer, but the more desirable revival mechanic. The one that V Vega doesn't just chew through, basically, okay? Which would be don't drop below 1 HP, okay? That in itself, I think, if they did something along those lines, whether it be the TKO thing, where you can get up to 3 revives, a la Sagat, or don't drop below 1 HP, I think would make him a kind of desirable unit. But the other thing I think they will do is they will either have his damage output tied to his damage taken, so maybe a bit like original Balrog, although Balrog, his damage taken dictates his damage reduction, but with this guy, because you know he is not going to die when he hits 1 HP, the more damage he takes, the more damage he gives out. So basically, if he was in PvP, because you would be facing off against Bisons and Vegas and stuff like that, you're quickly going to get down to triggering his passive, which would be his don't drop below 1 HP or whatever, right? And at that point he would be at maximum damage output, so he would be what we would call a risk reward character, right? Who is risky to play with, but the rewards are fantastic because his damage would be exponentially scaled to go along with that. Now I think they might do something like that, but the other thing I think they might do is they might put true damage on him, okay? Because actual true damage, not true soul damage, true damage, i.e. what Trendy Ryu has, is it's broken. Possibly it's broken, but it is broken to the extent that if it's triggered at the right times, it will kill characters that you wouldn't expect it to kill, okay? Now, true damage is supposed to ignore things, right? That is, if you play games, what true damage actually is it's supposed to be actual damage, disregarding the opponent's kind of things that negate damage, okay? So it's just raw damage. It just ignores things like defense and all the rest of it, and it's supposed to be pure damage. Doesn't matter what they usually do to mitigate damage, the damage still goes through and it still does what it's supposed to do, okay? True damage in characters and games are usually amazing, okay? The issue is, up to Trendy Ryu, I don't think we'd actually seen that, okay? And in my opinion anyway, I don't think it should override things like do not drop below 1 HP. Now, I could see why it would ignore something like standard Bison's revival mechanic, because that's different, okay? Do not drop below 1 HP is a very specific thing that it says. It says do not drop below 1 HP for a set number of time. It's not something that can be bypassed, but for some reason Trendy Ryu seems to bypass it. Is that broken as in not working, or is that just because it's such a good mechanic? You can decide, right? But either way, people know now that that is something that's pretty awesome, and even though Trendy Ryu is not only one of the best, let's be completely honest here, not only is Trendy Ryu the best divination character in the game, he's arguably one of the overall best characters in the game, despite the fact that he is not a special summon, and a lot of that comes down to how his damage works. But he's not a pure damage dealing unit. If you had something like that mechanic, but on a more proper raw damaging unit, like say Balrog, he would be something that would totally influence a meta on PvP. And at this stage in the game's life, when you are looking to, can I use the word milk as much money as possible? Does that make me negative? I don't think it does. But when you're looking to do that with putting out, let's just say, the least amount of content possible, the only way you're going to move that needle with regards to getting people to go and summon for a unit, especially when a lot of people are claiming, and I say claiming because I don't know how many people are actually doing this, when a lot of people are claiming they're no longer going to spend, hand on heart, I didn't buy the grant for Rose, which is the one thing I would normally have always bought, and we all know why. I'm not going to go over it again. We all know why I never bought it. Would the same thing happen if a meta changing unit along the kind of same, I don't want to say the same lines because that might give people the wrong idea, but that can influence the meta as much as someone like say a Vega or a Bison, if one of those units came along and you knew that you were now going to have to deal with a Team 1 Bison, Team 2 Vega, and Team 3 a Balrog on this new kind of broken comp, would that make people who are predisposed to spending but are currently on strike from spending, would that make them suddenly dip into their wallet again? I think it would. So I think that if they are analysing numbers, if they are trying to play the smart game, I think that's what we might be looking at from this Balrog. So bold prediction based on absolutely nothing apart from knowing habits of these gacha companies, knowing habits of companies like Topjoy specifically. I think that that's maybe the route that we're going to approach with this one, and I have got a sneaking suspicion, just a sneaking suspicion, that this Balrog might be on the higher end. That is just my opinion on that. Do I think Balrog's a character that is deserving of that? Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it would be quite good for Balrog to be on that kind of level. I think it's unfortunate right now that Sagat's not. Hopefully we can get a Sagat in the future. Whatever the future may hold, hopefully we get a Sagat. You would kind of like to think that you've got a special Bison, you've got a special Vega, you've now got a special Balrog. You can't really not have a special Sagat, so... And obviously, we don't class Pharaoh Sagat as a special Sagat. He's special in the terms that he's just awful, so maybe we can class him as special. He's just a special case of being awful. But yeah, so I think we're probably going to see a very interesting character coming out in a week's time. This is me basically either trying to will it into existence, which I don't know if I am. I mean, I don't want a bad Balrog, but I kind of don't want a Balrog where I feel like I have to get him. But I've got a funny feeling that that's maybe what we're looking at here. So my predictions for this guy is he's probably going to have some kind of decent revival mechanic that is going to revive around the whole revolve even around the whole boxing gimmick. So again, either TKO, revive up to 3 times, or 10 count, don't drop below 1 HP for a certain amount of time. I think 10 seconds might be a bit excessive, but hey, who knows. I think there's a strong chance that his damage might be tied to the damage he's taken, you know, the last hurrah, the going for the knockout punch kind of thing that you see in boxing, and I've got a funny feeling they're probably going to tie true damage to this guy. I want to know your feelings down below. I miss speculation videos. I know a lot of people don't like them because that is just literally my opinion on things, but opinion-based content is the content that I enjoy making the most, so if you don't like it, I don't care! Anyway, I'm going to catch you in the next one, guys, because I'm going to make a video right after this. Technically, I've got 2 videos to make, but I might not have time. Let's go for it anyway. Let's see. I've got 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to make 2 videos. I'll edit them after. We'll see what happens. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace out. See you later. Happy Hanukkah.